What do you think that going forward, like in this division, a lot of good guys, some big performances tonight. Ilia called you out. Michael Morales and Carlos Prates both want a shot. Shavkat wants a shot. Usman wants a shot. Who's the guy?
Everybody wants something.
There's losing a fight, and then there's giving it away in a way that makes everyone watching question if you even read the rulebook. We all expect knockouts, submissions, bad judges' decisions. That's normal. But some fighters manage to fumble victory in ways so ridiculous, so completely avoidable, that the replay feels like a prank. I'm talking about walking straight into a head kick with your hands down, illegally kneeing a guy you've already dropped, or literally waving to the crowd while a world-class grappler is on your back tightening a choke. These aren't just losses. These are career-haunting, meme fuel, what were you thinking, moments that follow fighters for years. Tonight we're breaking down 10 dumbest ways fighters have lost, from viral modern clips to forgotten disasters you won't believe actually happened in a professional cage. If you love MMA, crazy fight IQ fails, and the wild stories behind them, make sure you subscribe to MMA Desk so you don't miss the next breakdown. The first story starts in a cage in Europe, and it's over faster than people can even sit down in their seats. Two heavyweights are in there. One of them, Ilam, is ready to fight, hands up, focused, moving like you'd expect a trained pro to move.
I feel so happy. I stay now, try to control, but it's the biggest day in my life and so happy to be double UFC champion in Madison Square Garden. And what I told all fight week is my dream today.
Across from him is Mikko, and the second the ref says fight, you can tell something's off. He isn't in a real stance. His chin is up. His hands are down by his sides like he's walking down the street, not about to get hit by a man who has trained for months just for this moment. Instead of bouncing, measuring distance, or throwing a jab to test things out, he kind of just strolls forward, slow and lazy, like nothing bad can happen to him. It's almost like he's trying to send a message, like I'm not scared of you, but the way he does it leaves his whole face wide open. Islam sees this gift in front of him and doesn't waste time. He takes one step, then another, then lets a head kick fly. There is no setup, no long combo, no trick, just a clean, fast kick that whips up and smashes into Mikhail's jaw. Because his hands are nowhere near his head, the kick lands full power. Mikhail drops instantly, legs folding, body crashing to the mat as if someone unplugged him. The ref dives in, but the fight is already basically done after one move. It's not about who had better skills, or who had more heart. It's about one simple thing. One man walked into a fight acting like nothing could hurt him, and the other man reminded him that in MMA, that kind of ego can get you sent to sleep in 10 seconds.
But I know that he's won his last fight, so he's looking up in the rankings right there, so that might not happen. But I said, the fight that I would really like to make, and the biggest thing is just being healthy and just kind of recovering from a couple of strikes that I had, and I took to be in Guadalajara. I think that if they're able to make it, I would like to fight whoever, in Guadalajara. But I think that at this point, taking advantage of opportunities and being grateful for opportunities to fight maybe the 6th, the 5th, the 4th in the rankings.
The next story is the kind that keeps a fighter awake at night because he didn't lose due to bad luck or a close scorecard. He lost because he broke one of the clearest rules in the sport at the worst possible moment. Luis is fighting Sean, and early in the first round, Luis is having what might be one of the best minutes of his career. He's sharp, confident, and landing heavy shots. He drops Sean hard and has him wobbling all over the place. The crowd feels that end is coming. The commentators are already talking about how this could be a huge win. Sean is hurt, trying to survive, and then he goes down to a knee because he's rocked, and trying to buy a second to recover. This is where every fighter's mind should shout, he's down. You cannot knee him in the head. That's one of the first rules you learn. But Luis is caught up in the chaos, maybe smelling the finish too much, and he fires a big knee straight to Sean's head while Sean is still clearly grounded. The ref jumps in, stops everything, and suddenly the energy in the arena flips from hype to confusion and anger. Luis even starts to celebrate for a moment, thinking he just ended the fight, before the replay shows the illegal strike from every angle. The ref takes a point, Sean decides he can keep going, and now Luis has gone from a dominant almost finish to a messy, stressful situation. Instead of cruising to a clear win, he's in a close fight where that one stupid mistake hangs over every judge's scorecard. By the end, it's a draw, and both men leave with nothing special on their record. Luis had his opponent hurt, dropped him, and was inches away from a clean, career-building finish. Instead, he threw a strike everyone knows you're not allowed to throw, and that one choice turned a great night into one of the dumbest self-sabotages you'll ever see. Sometimes, a fighter doesn't get beat by a punch, a kick, or a choke. Sometimes, he gets beat by something as basic as the thing in his mouth that's supposed to protect his teeth. That's what happened to Matt in his rematch with a big, scary heavyweight named Sergey. Before fight week, Matt loses his custom mouthpiece, the one that's molded to fit his teeth perfectly. Instead of making sure he has a new one ready and tested in training, he ends up with a fresh piece he barely knows.
You have fought both Tom and Curtis Blades. They're fighting for the interim title in July. How do you think that fight goes, being that you've competed against both of them?
50 на 50, потому что, например, к Кертису Блейдсу я прошел полную подготовку, это совсем одно, с Аспиналом была совсем другая песня, поэтому очень интересный бой будет, посмотрим, самое интересное.
You know, it's going to be an interesting fight. It's a 50-50. When it comes to Curtis Blades, I had a full training camp before him. It was a whole different story when it came to Tommy. So, you know, it's interesting for me to see this fight. I'm going to be watching it.
At first, it seems like a small issue. The crowd is excited. The fighters touch gloves, and round one begins. They trade some shots, big men throwing big punches. But then Matt eats a shot, and his mouth guard goes flying out of his mouth onto the canvas. The ref stops the action, has it washed off, puts it back in, and tells him to keep it in. That should be a warning sign. A little later, it comes out again, and again. Each time the ref looks more annoyed, the commentary team gets more critical, and the crowd groans louder. The ref finally warns Matt that if it falls out one more time, he's going to take a point. Now, the mouthpiece isn't just a piece of gear, it's inside Matt's head. He's thinking about it, frustrated, distracted. Early in the second round, Sergey lands another clean punch. The mouthpiece flies one more time, and for just a moment, Matt looks away, clearly upset at the same problem. In that tiny window, where his attention is split, Sergey steps in and lands a brutal uppercut and a knee. Matt crumples, the ref stops the fight, and that's it. Afterward, Matt admits the mouthpiece wasn't really the main problem. The real issue was how he mentally allowed it to take over his focus. In a sport where a split second can change everything, he let a piece of plastic in his mouth become the main character instead of the man in front of him trying to knock him out.
He impresses me everywhere. I don't think you can look at his game and be like, this is where he's weak. I think the biggest issue that he's got fighting a guy like me is there's not another guy like me in the heavyweight division. It doesn't exist. Like, it literally doesn't exist. There's nobody 6'5", 260 who moves like I move. He can get all the training partners in the world that he wants, but you can't replicate a guy like me in the gym. And also, I'm not going to stand in the middle of the cage and have a shootout with him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to have a measuring competition with him.
One of the oldest and strangest examples of a fighter losing in a dumb way comes from the wild days of early MMA, when almost anything went and people were still trying to figure out what fighting style even meant. There was a man named Joe who claimed he had his own special martial art, and he went by a nickname from a comedy movie he acted in. He didn't come alone to the cage. He wanted a dramatic entrance, something that would make everyone remember him. His friend, a huge fighter named Chemo, had made a name for himself by walking to the cage carrying an enormous wooden cross on his back as a symbol. Joe decided he wanted to do the same thing. The problem was, this cross was big, and Joe was not. When he tried to carry it, it was clear from the first step that he was struggling. The thing weighed a lot, and he had to drag and lift it all the way from the curtain to the cage door. The cameras caught every moment of him grimacing, shifting the weight, and barely keeping his balance. By the time he actually reached the cage, he was breathing heavy and his arms were already tired. He had spent a huge chunk of his energy on a prop, not on fighting. Once the door closed and the fight started, his opponent, a tough guy named Keith, didn't care about the show. He cared about winning. He took Joe down, got on top, and went to work. Within a short time, Joe was in deep trouble. He got hit, he got squeezed, and he took a bunch of painful legal strikes to a very sensitive area that made everyone watching wince. Eventually, he tapped out. The whole thing turned into a strange mix of comedy and discomfort. The sad truth is that Joe never really gave himself a chance. He made the walkout harder than the fight needed to be. He didn't just waste his energy. He turned his entrance into the first round. In a sport where every bit of cardio matters, he spent his before the bell even rang. Another story that shows how a strange idea can ruin a fight comes from a man named Koji, who faced off against a young, tall, and dangerous boxer named Nick. Koji was not a bad fighter at all. In fact, he was skilled and experienced. But against Nick, he came in with a plan that sounded clever maybe in his head, but looked awful in real life. Instead of using normal defense, like keeping his hands up, moving his head, or stepping away from punches, Koji tried to do something different. He decided he was going to meet Nick's punches with his own punches. In other words, when Nick threw a straight, Koji would throw his own straight into it, trying to sort of block or deflect a punch with another punch. On paper, maybe this seems creative. In the cage, it just meant Koji stood in front of a longer fighter and left his chin out, with his hands flying around in weird patterns that didn't actually protect anything. Nick is not the kind of guy you want to test that idea on. He loves pressure, he loves volume, he throws in combinations, not single shots. So he starts to walk Koji down, jabbing his face, ripping combinations, and not respecting the odd intercept attempts at all. There's no real defense stopping him, no guard absorbing the blows. Koji keeps trying the same thing, as if one of these weird punch collisions will magically save him. Instead, the damage piles up fast. Within the first round, Nick cracks him clean, swarms, and the ref steps in to stop the fight. It looked less like a smart plan and more like a tutorial in why basics exist. The wildest part is that when Koji later fights Nick's brother, Nate, and uses normal movement and defense, he looks much better. That shows he was never hopeless as a fighter. He just chose one night to test one of the worst ideas you could bring into a cage. If that wasn't strange enough, think about a heavyweight whose main game plan seems to be spend most of the fight on your knees and hope your opponent messes up. That's basically what happened in a bizarre match between a wrestler named Mikhail and a striker named Konstantin. Mikhail is a strong grappler. If he actually used his wrestling, he could shoot, drive through the hips, and put people on their backs. But in this fight, he comes out with something else in mind. Over and over, instead of staying on his feet and trying to set up real takedowns, he just drops straight down to his knees right in front of Konstantin, puts his hands on the mat, and waits. To people watching, it looks like he's begging Konstantin to throw illegal soccer kicks to his head so he can win by disqualification. The problem is, Konstantin isn't stupid. He doesn't want to get DQ'd. So he mostly just punches him, backs up, or complains to the ref. The crowd starts to boo. The ref eventually gives them both a warning and takes money out of their pay because almost nothing is happening. This goes on for minutes. Mikhail barely attacks. His main approach is not to fight, but to make the other guy break the rules. By the time they get to the last round, the tension is high, and you can see Konstantin getting tired of the nonsense. Mikhail drops again, but this time his knees are not fully down. In that small window while he's halfway grounded and halfway up, Konstantin launches a huge kick and follows up with punches. Mikhail goes out, and the ref has to pull Konstantin away. The whole fight ends with Mikhail knocked unconscious, the complete opposite of the safe outcome he was trying to force. In the end, he didn't win with his wrestling, or his striking, or even with the rules. His big brain plan just turned his own head into a target. One of the craziest stories involves a special rules match in Japan between a famous grappler named Shinya and a popular kickboxer named Yuichiro. The rules of the fight are strange. The first round is pure kickboxing, no takedowns allowed. The second round, if they get there, changes to full MMA, where Shinya has a huge advantage on the ground. When the fight starts under kickboxing rules, Shinya does not want any part of the stand-up. He doesn't circle and box like a normal MMA fighter. Instead, he keeps dropping to the mat, flopping to his back, or diving in for fake takedowns that aren't even legal in that round. The ref keeps stopping him, warning him, and the crowd starts to boo because it feels like he's doing everything he can to avoid honest fighting. It's awkward, it's funny, and it's kind of annoying all at once. Still, he survives. He doesn't get knocked out in the kickboxing round, which was his big fear. Then the bell rings, and now it's round 2. Full MMA. His world. Everyone knows what he wants. The crowd knows, the commentators know, his opponent knows, Shinya wants to shoot a takedown. The second the round starts, he sprints forward in a straight line, head down, arms reaching for the legs. It's the most obvious takedown attempt you can make. Yuichiro doesn't back up, doesn't hesitate. He just times a flying knee right as Shinya's head passes through the danger zone. The knee lands perfectly on the chin, snapping Shinya's head back. He falls, and a couple of follow-up shots seal it. The fight is over in a few seconds of the MMA round, the very place Shinya was desperate to reach. In trying so hard to avoid danger early, he ended up walking straight into it later, in the most predictable way possible. For the last story, picture this. You're in a foreign country, fighting a legend, and somehow you decide the perfect time to say hi to the crowd is while that legend is on your back looking for a choke. That's what happened to a fighter named David when he took on Shinya. David knew he was in deep. Shinya was known for his submissions, and in the fight he quickly works his way to David's back. They're on the mat, David on his knees, Shinya attached like a backpack, hands fighting for the neck. For a while, David does okay. He pulls at the choking arm, tucks his chin, and keeps just enough defense to stay in the fight. The crowd is watching closely, knowing this is a dangerous spot. Then, out of nowhere, David does something that makes everyone, even the commentators, yell in shock. Instead of keeping both hands on the choke, he lifts one hand up, turns his head toward the audience, and starts waving. You can see his mouth forming the words "Hello Japan," as if he's a tourist, not a fighter in trouble. It's a joking, playful move at the worst possible time. That 1 second where he stops defending is all Shinya needs. The grappler slips his arm deeper under the chin, squeezes tight, and suddenly David is no longer smiling. His face changes from cocky to panicked in an instant. He taps soon after, and the fight is over just like that. Later, people replay the clip again and again. It becomes one of those moments you show friends who don't even watch MMA, just to say, look at this. Can you believe he did that? David didn't lose because he lacked heart or toughness. He lost because he forgot, for just a heartbeat, that in a fight, your job is not to entertain with a wave. Your job is to stay alive in the choke. When you look back at all these moments together, it's almost funny how different they are on the surface, yet how similar they are underneath. One fighter walks forward with no guard like he's invincible. Another has the win in his hands and throws it away with one illegal strike. Someone else gets distracted by a mouthpiece, a prop, or a strange plan that never should have been used in a real fight. And then there are the fighters who forget where they are entirely, whether it's waving at the crowd or celebrating a knockout that didn't actually end the fight. All of these moments come from the same place, a tiny lapse in judgment in a sport where even a split second can flip everything upside down. It doesn't matter if you've trained for 10 weeks, 10 years, or your entire life, MMA has a way of punishing the smallest mistake, harder than almost any sport out there. A fighter doesn't have to be outclassed, outworked, or outmatched to lose. Sometimes, all it takes is one decision, so strange, so unnecessary, or so careless that fans remember it forever, even more than the winner's name. And that's part of why people love this sport. Not just for the knockouts or the submissions, but for the unpredictable human moments where someone's brain just decides to press the wrong button at the worst possible time. These stories remind us that the line between brilliance and disaster is razor thin, and anyone rookie or legend can cross it without warning. So the next time you see a fighter zoning out, showboating, or celebrating too early, you might want to hold your breath, because MMA has taught us that nothing is safe until the ref waves it off. If you want more breakdowns, crazy moments, and deep dives into the wildest stories in combat sports, make sure you subscribe to MMA Desk and never miss a new video.